Hey everyone, it's Icy of Icy Studio, and today I will be showing you my reading journal. My notebooks are from Archer and Olive, and they have a range of amazing bullet journaling products. I am an Archer and Olive affiliate, and you can use my discount code ICStudio10 for 10% off eligible items. Anyway, who else is too scared to ruin this page? I like starting my bullet journal off with a quote, and if you know me, I like sweary, funny ones. I also wanted to include a wholesome quote, so here is my 2022 reading journal cover page. Next up, I've got my reading log, so this is where I keep the details on the books that I read. So this is where I write the book titles and when I started and finished them. In an ideal world, I would update my reading journal and even my bullet journal itself every day, but sometimes life gets in the way. So I still rely on my Goodreads app to update my reading tracker and my reading log. So on my reading log, I pick a color for every book that I read. And picking a color is the hardest part because most of the books I read are either red, orange, and green. So everything looks the same on my reading tracker. Up next, we've got a reading goal and reading progress page. So this is where I keep track on the reading milestones I've made during the year. So I've actually read 50 books this year. Little disclaimer, 2 of those I did not finish, basically 48 books. And I read a lot of graphic novels, so that helped me surpass my reading goal of 30 books. And I wonder how many books I will be able to read this year. Up next, we've got my reading tracker. So this setup is inspired by Vero of Vero Bujo and Dano of Dano's Bujo. So this is where the book colors come into play. So I color in the specific days of the year wherein I read a specific book. This should have been one of the first spreads in my reading journal, but anyway, I hand-lettered all of the 43 books that I've read in 2021 on this page, and I love how it turned out. So for every book that I read, I try to write down my review and my thoughts, rate it out of 5, and include my favorite quotes. Initially, I wanted to make this a creative reading journal, like practice my hand lettering by copying what the cover of the book looks like. But your girl don't always have the time to do that. So I stopped putting pressure on myself and just created what I could. So this is how my reading journal looks like. And here's a flip through of the reviews I've done on the books that I've read so far. OMG! I loved Project Hail Mary. Although it wasn't published this year, this is like the best book I've read in 2022. So this book is basically about a guy who was sent off on a mission to space. So the book begins with the character not remembering who he was, and throughout the book he gradually regains his memories through flashbacks. What I loved about this book is that it was so easy to understand despite the fact that there were a lot of scientific jargon. So when I was in high school, I really didn't like physics because I couldn't understand anything about it. I didn't like algebra or anything with numbers because I couldn't understand anything at all. So if Andy Wire was my physics teacher, I would probably have been a physicist. So he also wrote The Martian, which is a major motion picture, which is a movie that I saw and mind-blowing. If you love science fiction, read Project Hail Mary by Andy Wire. Amaze! My favorite trilogy that I have read this year would be the Serpent and Dove series by Shelby Mahurin. So I love enemies to lovers tropes, and this was like, ate it all up. It's a young adult fiction that's set in ancient times, and it's about a witch and a witch hunter, and initially I was feeling very skeptical about this book because when I was watching Cindy of Read with Cindy's video about it, she didn't really like it, so I wasn't expecting to like it, but I absolutely loved it. I love it, I love it, I love it. So I ate up Serpent and Dove, Blood and Honey, and God and Monsters. Best trilogy I've read this year. So Another book that I also want to talk about is Roxy, and it is written by Jared Shusterman, who is Neil Shusterman's son. So these Shusterman guys, they are such creative authors. So if you ask me what my favorite book was, I would say it's Scythe by Neil Shusterman. Whew! I read it 4 years ago, but still, I don't know why I can't find anything that can top Scythe. And I just like how, you know, their minds work. It's like, how do they think of these things?
Give me some of your brains.
So Roxy is basically about dangerous drugs like oxycodone, heroin. They're personified in this book. Initially I had trouble getting into it because they were talking about these drugs, but they were personified and they were the actual people that were using them, and you know, it was kind of hard for my mind. Hard for me to wrap my head around the setting. You know, eventually I got into it. The writing is just so beautiful. There are parts that are written from the perspective of the drugs, and it's just so poetic. This book also gave me perspective from the eyes of a drug user. Pretty intense. So can I just talk about this book for 1 second? So in the booktube community, this book is so overhyped that I felt the need to read it. So initially, I was really enjoying the pacing and how the events unfolded. But for some reason, I started feeling annoyed. I think I was very hormonal when I was reading it. And what I didn't like about this book was the sibling love triangle. So it was kind of like Damon, Stefan, and Elena in the Vampire Diaries. But at the time, I felt okay with that. But right now, I don't. I just wasn't feeling it. I wasn't feeling the chemistry because, I don't know, she was torn between two brothers, and that's just not my thing. And after that, I just kept feeling so annoyed at everything. Their grandfather did all that, did all those riddles, and towards the end of the book, I just felt like this could have been an email, Grandpa. I don't know, maybe I was just feeling hormonal. Maybe I was just PMSing at the time, but I just wasn't, that could have been an email. And I think one factor that affects whether I enjoy a book or not is my mood. So I don't know, but yeah, but no. So throughout the book, the protagonist was having flashbacks of her mother, saying something about secrets about the day she was born or something like that. Nothing connected to the day she was born. I was expecting a deeper reason into grandfather Hawthorne picking Avery. The reason was just like, it was just because of her name and nothing else. I probably wouldn't read the next books. I wouldn't probably read the succeeding books. Yeah, so that's my unpopular opinion. Since we are on the topic of unpopular opinions, let's talk about another overhyped book. Pitchforks are coming for me! Another book that I felt that was overhyped was These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. So it's a Romeo and Juliet retelling in 1920s Shanghai, China. There's a feud between the Chinese and the Russians, which was very interesting. Initially, I didn't know that it was set in the 1920s until like a few chapters later, because I was like, where are their phones? Don't they have phones? How do they communicate? There were supernatural elements like monsters in the water or something like that, and then it was affecting both sides of the gang. Your girl loves a good enemies to lovers trope. I just wasn't feeling the chemistry, so by page 75 I decided, oh, maybe this isn't worth it. I'm just gonna DNF it, and I DNF'd it, and I'm very sorry. So this is another unpopular opinion. Little disclaimer, so these are just my opinions on the books that I read. People like different things, we all have different tastes, and I'm not hating on the authors or the people who love these books. So these are just my thoughts. So have you ever picked up a book and after a few chapters you're like, oh no, this is not what I thought it was gonna be? That was me. So another book that I want to talk about is Neon Gods by Katie Roberts. I actually like Greek mythology retellings, and a specific storyline that I have been searching for is a Persephone and Hades retelling. And surprise, surprise, I finally find a book that is about that. And the first 5 chapters were really good. So it's a modern day Olympus. In this book, Olympus is basically like Hollywood and all of the gods are celebrities. The portrayal of Zeus in this book is very spot on for me because he is am I allowed to say this? He is portrayed as the leader of all of the Olympians, god of gods, and the king of kings. And he is basically untouchable no matter what he does. And then we follow Persephone, who is the daughter of Demeter. Her image in this book is Ray of Sunshine, one of the good girls. And then suddenly one day at Zeus's party, he announces that he will be taking another wife, so another Hera. So in this book, he's already been married 3 times and supposedly killed his 3 wives. And of course, who would want to be married to that? I mean, you could be next to die. He announces to the whole world that he was gonna marry Persephone. I mean, I was like, girl, run, run. So she did run. She crosses the river Styx, into the underworld where Hades reigns. So in this book, the Olympians had an agreement that, you know, Hades rules the lower part and, you know, Zeus's kingdom is the upper part, and they can't go into each other's territories. And then from chapter 6 onwards, I suddenly realized that this is an erotic novel. So Persephone crosses the bridge and then she finally gets to meet Hades, who is like this mysterious guy, and he was described to have dark shoulder-length hair with a beard. When you describe someone who has shoulder-length hair and a beard, only 2 people come into mind. I either think Jesus or Jared Leto. And I'm like, okay, Katie, okay. If that's how you want Hades to look like, okay. Because I was thinking maybe someone with ice blonde hair, maybe a Targaryen or a Malfoy, maybe. Anyway, I need a drink. So Persephone meets Hades because she wants to escape Olympus and because she won't have access to her trust fund until she turns 25 in 3 months. She makes an agreement with Hades and decides to stay in the underworld, and this is where the smut begins. I like steamy love scenes, but this was a different level. I guess if you like 50 Shades of Grey and novels that are of the sort, I would probably recommend this to you, but if you don't, please don't read it. Another thing that would have made it better was the romance or the whatever was going on between Hades and Persephone. It was so instant. The actual day that she got into the underworld and they made an agreement, she started saying stuff like, ruin me, Hades, ruin me. Couldn't you have waited? Again. Maybe she had this like inner persona that, you know, I don't know. Anyway, I mean, maybe I would have appreciated a little bit more sexual tension between 2 characters, because that is kind of like, girl, I'ma eat that all up. But no, it was like day 1. Smut. Right in my face. Love scenes were too graphic for my liking that it was like reading porn. But in saying that, I decided to just roll with it and read it till the end. Yeah. That feeling when you aren't really feeling a book and then you just want to finish it, so you just speed read everything. If only I liked smut. And because no one asked, I am currently reading Fairy Tale by Stephen King. So Stephen King and I, we're not that tight. So I've read a few Stephen King books in the past. I have DNF'd quite a few. This is actually the first one that I genuinely like. So this is about a teenage boy who inherits property that has a secret world. It kind of has like a dark Wizard of Oz vibe, and I like it. The only thing I don't like about Stephen King's writing is that he explains every single detail of every single thing. So the book is about 577 pages long, and he describes so many things. 577 pages. I feel like this could have been a series. I don't know. First part of the book was about the boy Charlie tragically losing his mother at the age of 7 and his dad's battle with alcoholism, and then the second part is about his father being sober. Charlie is now a teenager and he ends up helping a grumpy elderly man who lives within the neighborhood, and then they develop this amazing bond, kind of like grandfather and grandson relationship. That could have been like story number 2. And then the third bit is when Charlie discovers this other world and a lot of other things happen in that world. But in saying all that, this is the first Stephen King book that I actually really like. Do you like Stephen King? If you do, please let me know which books you like. Another book that I'm currently reading is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. I did not know that it was a book, seeing that the series is on Netflix. I've actually never watched it. I don't do horror films. I don't do horror series. I mean, zombies and aliens and vampires and werewolves I can do, but ghosts, no, I can't. So when I saw the book on the library shelf, I was just like, let's give it a go. And I'm currently enjoying that so much. So if you don't know what it's about a doctor who invites individuals to stay in Hill House. And it's a very strange house and the caretakers are very strange. I usually read to sleep, but with this book, I don't read it to sleep. I don't read it at night. I read it in broad daylight, and that I'm not alone because your girl is chicken. I'm actually really liking it. Aside from fairy tale and Haunting of Hill House, I'm also reading The Merciful Crow by Margaret Owen. Because I liked Little Thieves, I thought maybe I'd try reading this. I don't even know what it's about. So it's a young adult fiction about a kingdom where there are castes, social hierarchies, and they are classified into types of birds, royals, or like phoenix. And then there's the people that collect the dead or kill those who are extremely sick and dispose of their bodies, so they are crows. It is a very dark book and the setting is ancient times like Game of Thrones, and the language that the characters speak in is very ancient and sometimes I don't follow. So I'm hoping one of these days I'm gonna be able to get into it because I like Little Thieves and it would be a shame if I didn't like this book. So if you've made it this far, thank you for watching, and please let me know what you're currently reading right now and if you keep a reading journal and what kind of spreads you have in your reading journal. And I'll see you guys in the next video.